Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Domus Academy and as Director of Education, we'd like to welcome all of our guests who have joined us here this evening for the inauguration of the Disrupting Pattern Lecture Series. A lecture series of talks and panels organized by the school dedicated to furthering discourse around creative production, conversing with architects, designers, and thinkers, protagonists around the themes of the critical present, with a special focus on projective, forward-thinking ideas and work. This evening, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Vincent Van Duysen, an architect, a designer, and art director. His distinctive style and architecture rigor are applied across scale, across disciplines. From his office in Antwerp, he works on large-scale architectural projects to interiors to product design. During his career, Vincent has received multiple awards, and I'll just cite a few here to introduce him to you. The most recent Flemish Cultural Prize for Design, Belgian Designer of the Year, and the Henry van der Velde Lifetime Achievement Award. Vincent also has a close tie with Italy. He has, since 2016, has been the creative director of Molteni&C, helping reshape the global image, designing the flagship stores, exhibition stands, and a series of products. Vincent, thank you very much for being with us this evening.
My pleasure, Mark.
Caterina Lunghi, a longtime faculty member of Domus Academy and journalist, who also collaborates with various magazines and the publishing house Rizzoli, will be talking and interviewing him. So thank you very much. Welcome again.
Thank you very much as well. Hi, Caterina. How are you?
Hi, Vincent. I'm fine, and thank you for joining us from Antwerp. And thank you, Mark, for the introduction. So welcome, everyone, to My Mind Never Stop Sketching. So, Vincent, as Mark underlined, you work on different scale of projects, from small scale, and here we have an handle for Olivari, to big scale for architecture, residence, retail, hospitality, house. So I'm curious the way you face every single project. I mean, is different or is, let's say, you have, is the mindset that matters and not the scale of the project?
I think it's what you said on the last phrase. It's like much more the mindset, but on the other hand, for me, architecture goes beyond the let's say the structure or the building of the actual space, but it's also actually, as an architect, I mean, we're creating space for people to live in it, but also to live with their objects, with their belongings. So it means, like, I mean, this kind of skills that you see going from a door handle to a large scale architectural building is for me all called architecture. I also refer a bit to Bauhaus. I mean, also to this world of Gesamtkunstwerk, where actually you have all these different people of different backgrounds with different skills, and also architects that have to deal with textiles, with I mean, with furniture pieces. So it was literally, you know, one world. So and that's actually what I thought, what was my point of interest when I finishing my studies as an architect, that actually I wanted to know how people were living inside their houses, and therefore I really wanted to complete my activities as an architect, focusing really from the design from one door handle to the full large scale building, let's say.
And Vincent, let's go into big scale, architecture and interior. You are like a human architect, and the art of living, well-being, like to feel well and comfortable at home are central in your work. So here we have some images of your interiors. If you can tell us about your concept, how you make us feel good in your spaces.
Well, I mean, it's true. I'm paying a lot of attention to the well-being of the people. And I mean, also the fact that a house should be a place where people are feeling protected. I always call it also kind of like my own house, like a little bit like a sanctuary, where people are really disconnected from the hard, fast track of the world rhythms, and where people are really making or taking much more attention to the quality of life. And I mean, specifically right now, I mean, even in this period we're living right now, it's super delicate. I mean, I think the house at itself is extremely important. So and actually what I'm doing is I'm always trying I mean to understand my clients, to understand what they want, to understand the context where I have to interfere, and these all specific elements, they're inspiring me and setting up like kind of like as you said, like some mind sketches that I'm building up very fast to understand and to see how I can respect and translate introduce even the demands of my clients into a house where they're living in it. And I mean, of course, besides, I mean, this kind of storytelling and living within these people's houses, I think all of these functions are all part again of architecture. I mean, none of my interiors are disconnected from the outside. I mean, they're all interrelated, and I will never disconnect my architecture from the interior. So it's one continuum, which I believe also in terms of materials. I mean, my style is pretty much timeless. I'm using a lot of natural materials like woods, different textures of woods, as you see in the pictures here, because you see, for example, one part here is my attic in the home where I'm living, which is all built up out of wood that dates from the 18th century, but that recalls also the wooden structure of the existing house that I had. So to create this kind of warmth that for me, I believe also, and serenity is adding value for the quality of life. I mean, I pay a lot of attention to the various textures. My work in general is very sensorial, very tactile. Again, mainly using those natural materials. I'm paying a lot of attention also to, let's call like, I mean, the heart of a house could also be like a fireplace. So I mean, in some ways, there is kind of like traditional way of approaching what a house was and what a house should be, and without let's say without forgetting or neglecting the essence of the house. I think as an architect or a designer, it's very important to take that with him or his into this journey in designing a house. I think like I believe, like, I mean, a house, it's where it all started. I mean, when I was a young architect, I dived into the interiors, and from the interiors, I conceived my exteriors. And it's all based on a sequence of all different elements that I build up these houses that at the end, again, are sanctuaries where people are feeling comfortable and where people are feeling good. I mean, that's my general aim and goal.
Vincent, I have here in my mind, my hands, the book about your body of work with a super nice foreword by actress Julianne Moore. Mm-hmm. She's a friend of you, and you designed her apartment in New York. And I would like to read a couple of lines by her about you. She says, he cares about people and family and beauty in nature, light and art and dogs and children. You have 3 dogs, right? Natural stone and wood and linen and casement windows and matte surfaces. He is exuberant, joyful and generous and hardworking. I mean, I think that she sums up your desire to make us, right? Your personality that also is
Of course. I mean, in my house, I mean, let's see, in my work is, of course, reflects the continuity of my personality as well. But on the other hand, again, what I was saying, like in the beginning of the talk is, and I really take care a lot about that. And it's something that I learned or I read from an incredible, famous interior designer, decorator, a French decorator in the 30s, which name is Jean-Michel Franck, had this pure, exquisite, beautiful interiors with very limited choices of materials, but very, like, I mean, very refined. And actually, it's also all about getting rid of the excess. So, I mean, when I started as a young architect already, I mean, my aim was creating this calmness and serenity. And I mean, and the goal was also all the time, like, I mean, whatever you add and whatever you add as extra layers, sometimes you need to get rid of it. I mean, getting really to the essence of what living is, what are the elements, what we need to live comfortable. We know we don't need excessive palettes of materials or exuberance in colors. Colors come from life, colors come from your dogs, as you said, colors comes from art, colors come from beautiful objects, but colors or beauty can also come from the emptiness. I mean, from the void and the calmness of, like you see here, a picture of my house in Portugal, where you see very limited material, a concrete, a dark brown, tribal rug, you have some Brazilian wood, and then, I mean, very spare furniture pieces that are linked to the Brazilian culture, also to the Portuguese culture. And I mean, of course, you have the beautiful sunlight and the different shades of sun and light. So this is for me actually very, very important. And this belongs also to humanity. This is what makes human also feeling happy. And this is what we need. And I mean, this kind of calmness and beauty that I create through my work is definitely it's appreciated by people like Julian. I mean, like, she really loves this style of my own houses here in Antwerp. She loves the house in Portugal, and she is also, I mean, a person that loves to live in this kind of environments that I created for her. So I mean,
Vincent, you are a kind of nice control freak, because I know that it's very important also the shade of the color of the concrete, right? For example, your house in Portugal has a kind of sand.
Well, I mean, this was actually, I mean, a very exciting process of the building here. I mean, like, most of my materials, they're derivating from nature, you know. I mean, like, you know, again, all these natural materials, they're derivating from nature. And specifically on the house in Portugal, I was inspired by the various tones of the sand of the dunes, because the house literally sits into a dune. And I really wanted to have the house kind of like emerging with the nature and with the color of the sand. So we have to do multiple exercises with finding the right tone and color tone of the concrete that really reflects the nature and the environment. And again, I mean, like, here as well, I mean, if you have these kind of houses that are sitting in this beautiful landscape, where actually the nature is almost like a living painting. I mean, like, and you're capturing nature, and the way how you interact with nature becomes also very important in all of my career. I mean, I could almost say that it's kind of like interiorizing the exterior. So literally, it's like you're bringing in the nature into your interiors and vice versa. So if you look from the inside to the outside, the nature is a living painting. And when you live with the nature, it's like bringing that nature again inside the interior. And that's also something which I'm doing with my materials, like creating very, like, almost no barriers between the exteriors and the interiors. So I mean, like, and specifically in the house in Portugal, for example, you can slide open all the windows. So almost it becomes like an outdoor pavilion. And the only thing you see is that nature. And that nature is so captivating that even in the house in Portugal, there was even no need for bringing art in it, because the art is the nature. And this is what I'm trying to do in many of my projects, even in my house in Antwerp, where I have the possibility to bring in nature, even in secret gardens or patios. I will do it, because first of all, nature is a source of oxygen. I love, I mean, just the fact that it's something livable, plants, that it changes, and you know, when it moves with the wind and the rains and so on. So all of a sudden it becomes very poetic, and I always paid a lot of attention to it, and I'm always trying to bring nature into each of my projects.
And Vincent, this house called the Casa M in Portugal, you designed a year ago, right?
I completed the house 1 year ago. So this summer was the second summer I passed it in. I mean, it was a very specific, project for me, because it's my first new build project that I did, and where again, I mean, the interior is an extension of the exterior, and I mean, I really wanted to limit me to very primal forms. And of course, you can see, I think it's also very important for also each of the students, but every architect, is that we have to look sometimes back in the past. And you have, I mean, of course, we all have references and we all get inspired by, I mean, by many things we see. I'm like a sponge, so I'm constantly observing, constantly I'm thinking, reflecting, sketching me mentally. And when I was starting the design process of my house in Portugal, I had some classic architecture in my background. I mean, for example, you can see there's a reminiscence of Luis Barragan, which is one of my favorite architects ever. I mean, like he's an example and a source of inspiration. I mean, beyond. I mean, there is a little bit of George O'Keeffe, like the Adobe architecture. I mean, there is also Utzon. I mean, like Villa Lis a little bit in Mallorca, which I really like again. So there are some elements. There's Casa Malaparte, talking about
in Capri, right?
Casa Malaparte. I mean, this is one of a kind of an iconic building. Each time when I was in Capri, I go and see it from La Libera, and I loved it. I mean, the fact that you can really walk on top of the roof, and where the roof is completely tiled. I mean, actually, I took that with me in designing the Casa M, because you can walk on the roof.
We have all in mind Casa Malaparte, also thanks to the movie by Godard, Le Mépris, right? With Brigitte Bardot.
Exactly.
The terrace.
I was thinking, actually, I mean, when I was designing this house and when our house was finished, I'm pretty much a close friend with Luca Guadagnino. And I said, like, if he could make a remake of that film, before we met Brigitte Bardot, that would be for me the best. So, but it's true that, I mean, it's very delicate. And also what is very important is, again, the various textures. I mean, because in a way, even if you were saying that I'm aiming for perfection, I mean, there's also a beauty of imperfection. And I mean, this beauty of imperfection is also related to nature. I mean, a tree is never perfect because it all has these irregularities in the branches and the color of the leaves. I brought these colors, like also in Casa M. For example, the inside of the pool is this kind of dark green. The color of the tiles reflects to the color of the trees itself. You see here little sand structures on the patio, on the courtyard. The concrete itself is poured on site. So I mean, like, it's not prefabricated, it's poured on site. And all these kind of imperfections together with the beauty of the wood and the Brazilian wood makes this as a very unique house that literally blends and merges very well with the landscape and the nature.
And Vincent, how about this project?
This project is actually a project which we created in line with Casa M, but it's kind of like a vineyard with in Belgium, so where the people are making their own wine and where you can degustate wine. And it's also, of course, based on this kind of typical barn structures. I'm a big fan, and you can see in my work in kind of like revisiting or reviewing or reconsidering the typical farm structures or barn structures. And actually, this was an exercise where we grouped this kind of barn structures around the patio, and then also highlighted with one central kind of wooden tower, which kind of like is also a little bit like a domestic functions that it holds in. But this building is a building where people can come and see how the wine is made. They can taste the way. I mean, it's situated in Belgium, in the Flanders, so it's a very flat landscape. You can see, you know, once you enter and once you arrive the property, you have this huge wooden sliding door that you can open and close, and once you open, the nature literally comes in again. So again, I mean, this is again a project where I show incredibly the relation between nature and architecture.
A real conversation, right? A dialogue between
yes,
nature and architecture. Here it's
again my house, the house where I'm sitting in right now at the back of me. I mean, I remember when I bought this house and I started working on the house, the area where you see here was a covered area. It was actually on the ground floor, a house which was actually exploited and used by lawyers. So they had all their offices on the ground floor, and that specific area where you see the tree was a covered area with toilets and a waiting room. So when we started to dismantle the house, all of a sudden, I mean, I realized, I mean, there was this natural light coming in, and I got the opportunity to open it up on three sides, not only to bring in natural light to the adjacent spaces, but also to bring in that tree. And that tree is actually the epicenter, and it's kind of the protagonist, I mean, of the house, because all the functions and all the functions of my living room are concentrated around that secret garden, let's call it, with the Acer. And that's also something that I brought in my work at the beginning as a creative director for Molteni, for example.
For example, Vincent, from a big scale, let's go into product design. since 2016, as Mark said before, you have been a creative director of Molteni&C, that is the biggest Italian furniture and design company based in Brianza between Lake Como and Milano, so close to Domus Academy area. And not only Molteni, but you have been collaborating with Floss here, for example, Olivari for door handle, Fantini for kitchen and bathroom, and many other companies. So, Vincent, your way to face a product design project, because you are first of all an architect. And in my mind, Vico Magistretti, Gio Ponti, Carlo Mollino, Albini, let's say the maestros, the old generation of architect and designer come to my mind. So what is your, how you work with the product design?
Well, first of all, I mean, the people that contacted me in the beginning of my career, not actually in the beginning of the career, because I think I was already almost 10, 15 years busy as an architect, who contacted me to see where I was interested to design products. They were all actually more impressed and attracted by my work as an architect. So somehow, even in Belgium, I mean, we have this culture of, you know, of having a house and living nicely in our houses. I mean, we really love it. And I created my style at the beginning. These people, they were really, again, impressed by how I was dealing with these interiors. And they wanted to know if it was possible to get some of my products or some of my tailor-made products or directions of my interiors that I did in some of my projects could be distracted and could be considered as a single produced or single industrialized product. And for me, it was very new because, you know, I'm an architect, as you said, I'm not a product designer, so I didn't have that much of know-how of the technology and of the manufacturing of all it. Besides, of course, making architecture and finishing the interiors, specifically like the fixed furniture, like cupboards and bathrooms and cabinets and so on. But I mean, diving into the product design, I mean, obviously I needed to have the support of all the know-how of these big companies. And of course, to name some of them, we have some products of Floss that I designed a couple of years ago. I mean, starting in the left with infrastructure, which is like an eye-wing to Bauhaus, because they asked me to design architectural lighting. And instead of doing something invisible, I really showed the fixture itself, like almost the light being transported underneath the ceiling. That's why it's called infrastructure. And then of course the little reading lamp that we just finished right now, which you can read. I mean, you can read the resemblance between infrastructure on the left and then this kind of beautiful, discrete, oblique lighting reading lamp on the right. So it's all connected with that language which we call architecture. And also with Molteni, I mean, when I came in contact with Molteni,
here we have Paul, right?
Here we have Paul. Molteni, I mean, the family Molteni was also fascinated by my home, by my living, by my domestic projects. I mean, the way that I had a lot of knowledge with residential projects. And that's how the collaboration started with Molteni, where actually one of the first products is Paul, and which actually is the kind of protagonist of the products that I designed for Molteni, because it really still looks as a sofa, but it's just a way how I kind of like modify the dimensions, how I modify some subtle details without neglecting the archetypical typology of what a sofa is, actually, what people all know. But it's just a matter of like, you know, stretching some of the dimensions. I mean, here also, the fact that it's a very deep sofa, but then instead of having thicker armrests or thicker backrests, we made them very subtle. And you know, when the stitching of the armrest and the backrest, they continue in the legs. And then within this kind of rigid form, but yet very comfortable, I'm adding this kind of super extra blown up, very soft and sophisticated and very warm cushion. So, and all of this subtlety variations and shifting in dimensions made Paul a success, and made Paul, I mean, a very strong protagonist with its own identity.
And Vincent, I have this quotation by you when we talked last week. I'm not a designer for the sake of design. I hate the word trend. And I do think that Paul and also this bookshelf, they really embodies to avoid trends, right? From you?
I mean, I've always did it. I mean, from the beginning of my career, I mean, I always wanted to go to the pureness and the essence of my in everything what I'm doing as my work, even in building an architecture or whatever structure, or designing a product. I mean, I think what is very important, and I mean already the last couple of years before COVID and so on, I mean, I already, but also in general, in my mindset was also like, you know, we don't have to force ourselves too much in finding out or discovering new forms. I mean, like, you know, for me, it's of course you need sometimes a little bit, and you need a little bit, you know, out of the box as well. And I'm always trying to do it, but in a very subtle, poetic way, or in a very surprising way, so that still people are seeing that it's not something, you know, on the repeating bottom that we're pushing, but that, you know, with slightly reviewing things or reconsidering or decomposing and rebuilding it again, we can come up with some fresh and new ideas without losing the integrity and the authenticity of what the piece or the space or the architecture means. And this is what I was meaning. I mean, like sometimes there is an overconsumption, and there is sometimes an people are sometimes at some point losing there's a lack of awarenessness. And I mean, there's awareness is that everybody and every designer and architect should be aware of what we're doing, and should also be aware not only of designing the form or the meaning of the form, the typology of the form, but also the durability, the sustainability, and also being aware of the way how it's made. So it means, like, I mean, the craftsmanship, the bringing the different joints all together, bringing subtly some variations in materials, like here the leather with wood for B&B, or a beautiful weaving and a backrest that reminiscence to the Scandinavian weaving for an armchair that I designed for an American brand, David Sutherland. You know, it's playing a little bit with the proportions and sections of the structure or the skeleton of the furniture, or in general. So these kind of little things, these kind of little twisted modifications is what I'm aiming for. And on the other hand, I mean, yes, these products are modern, yes, they're new, but there is always an eye wink towards the past, that people can recognize it without, you know, ending in this kind of like empty romanticism or this kind of, you know, soulless retro style, which obviously we are not. We're modernists in heart and core. So I mean, this is what I want to say. So
also because Vincent, Domus Academy wants always to look at the future, but always looking also back at the past. And the school itself was founded by Branzi, Mendini, so we are in the middle ourselves. Vincent, before you mentioned durability, and it came to my mind, if you agree, the concept of longevity that is made of taste and material. So to have a long life, you have to have a taste that is not just for a year, so it's not trendy, as we said before, and the importance of very good material to last, right? To be strong over the years. So it came to my mind.
I mean, it's always also a matter of respect. I think that's the main important thing. I mean, it's a matter of respect. It's not that everything has to be eco-proofed or whatsoever, but I mean, I'm aiming for sustainable and eco-friendly materials and so on. And I'm talking again, I mean, about, and that's also what also with Molteni. I mean, this is a big industry. I mean, but I mean, still, I mean, designing and creating those beautiful furniture pieces for them shows that even behind that industry, you can still feel the hand of the manufacturer, of the person, the artisan who manufactures with passion these pieces. And obviously, the support, the incredible and exquisite support from companies like Molteni is that they have an incredibly knowledge of technology as well, but we call it hidden technology. And this kind of hidden technology is needed to make sure that we can produce furniture pieces or elements that are needed for the house within a larger, let's say, amount, and also not giving up the quality of the piece, so that we make sure when our consumers have those products in their hands, they even don't realize that this is made in a big company. And this is the beauty of working with companies like Molteni, because
Italian company, Vincent.
Italian company. This is also, I mean, of course, made in Italy. I mean, this is what we want and what we love to hear. As you know, for me, made in Italy, we will talk maybe later a little bit, is something which is already part of my heritage and of my personality since I left actually school, and since I finished my school in the university.
Sorry, a preview of what comes later. Vincent, Fantini, Italy again. This is, you also work with Fantini, that is super high-end kitchen and bathroom fixture company.
Exactly.
And also in a little things like this, there is a lot of story, right?
Well, I mean, when Fantini approached me, I mean, of course, first of all, they were also, I mean, aware and big fan of my work. Also, again, this timelessness of it. I mean, this kind of modern classic attitude in my work, like more like a passepartout, something that, you know, that enters in their collection, which is again at some time not too retro but modern at the same time again. So I got this idea, I mean, to review and revisit again this kind of more classical, like a cross-step kitchen and bathroom fixtures. But then it's again all about the materiality, about the radiuses, about the ergonomics, because it might be that it's only like a cross. But on the other hand, I mean, when you touch it and you see that the fact that that's on the part underneath where you have the handles that's rounded up makes the steps absolutely ergonomic in its purity and its simplicity. And obviously we have this incredible, beautiful finishings in it. And of course, again, the hidden technology, which is all inside and which is of course developed by Fantini.
Vincent, before you mention Milano, Italy, your long-time relationship with us. So here we have something by Ettore Sozzas. What is the role of Italy?
Well, I mean, the role of Italy has been, I mean, I've been educated with Italy. I mean, it's almost like it was given into my mouth as food on a spoon. I've always been a big fan of Italy because of its culture, the history of Italy, but the general art of living as well. I mean, fashion, design, food. So, and obviously, I mean,
I know that you speak quite well Italian.
I speak my Italian quite fluently. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be creative director of Molteni either. But I love it. So it's kind of like my second language. And I feel like in my past life, I've been an Italian. But going back to my link with Italy, you know, I studied between 1980 and 1985, 5 years architecture at the peak of postmodernism. So literally,
you studied in Belgium, right?
I studied in the University of Ghent, St. Lucas, where actually there were other art disciplines, but I was at the peak of postmodernism. So of course, I mean, like, I was a kid of postmodernism. So I mean, we were educated with people like Alchemia, with Alessandro Mendini, with Ettore Sozzas, with a whole group of people. And I mean, we just at the end, around 85, it was the beginning, the start of deconstructivism, with like people like with Zaha Hadid, Koop Himmelblau, there were others. But I mean, for me, mainly it was all about these primary form languages, very manieristic, very exuberant in colors, all the referring also to the classic architecture somehow, but with a very playful and colorful way of dealing with it. So with that, I mean, being passionate already, I thought like, okay, after my studies, I have to go to Italy. And I mean, I really want to see and learn about and more about what I've learned in the university. I want to see with my own eyes and practice it. And literally, I became the first assistant of Aldo Cibic, who was at that time an associate of Sozzas Associati and of Memphis at the time, because the group was called Memphis. And that's how it all started. So I mean, like, I started to work in Italy as a young architect, working for these people. And since then, I mean, I always had this incredibly long-lasting relationship with Italy. I came back in the late 80s. I created a style which was obviously like opposite to what I was doing as postmodernism. Maybe I was like, I couldn't digest anymore the amount of colors and patterns and forms, and I was aiming for a style that was more quiet. I was traveling a lot to Mediterranean countries. I was traveling a lot to Africa, to Morocco specifically. I was always inspired and by this very tribal architecture, the pureness of it, the essence of the forms. I was all the time having people like, you know, modernists in my mind, where you have this calm and serene interiors, like this house, which I love, is a house of Schindler, a mid-century modernist, a house which is situated in Los Angeles, which I visited a couple of times, and which I love the colors, the materials, the fact that it blends with the interior and exterior. Also a little bit Japanese touches, which obviously I also like. Very primary forms, beautiful materials. We have people like Frank Lloyd Wright, which I visited some
Here we have a detail of
the concrete block houses with the imprint, beautiful, beautiful, solid constructions, also related to here to the Inca culture, because he was impressed to the Inca culture, but also
this house is called Ennis Brau. I have been there, and it's very famous because of Blade Runner movie.
Exactly. It's in a beautiful, beautiful house, and you have a couple of these kind of block cement houses that he made in concrete. Of course, everybody knows falling water, but these houses were so unique because they were all crafted. They're kind of like, you know, they're sculptures. At the end, they're sculptures, and also the way, you know, all these people, of course, they also worked on the interiors. If you see Frank Lloyd Wright's interiors are reminiscent, they're incredible, and you know the way how they interact with the architecture again is one of a kind. We have, of course, in Italy, I mean, someone who I really carry on my heart here is Carlos Carpa. He was, for me, the master in detailing, in materials, in architecture, super poetic, very emotional, very tactile, very refined, and yet very Italian. So, I mean, all these people, I mean, constantly were kind of like crisscrossing my mind all of the time. And this, you know, I believe that everybody should know all these people and get inspired by these great, great masters as I do. And I mean, these kind of subtle details that I'm bringing in my own projects, they always will refer to any kind of these grand masters.
And Vincent, it's very nice how you are so contemporary, so fresh, but at the same time, you are not obsessed with technology, innovation, but you respect a lot the past, and you are not looking for new, but right, you are demonstrating the value of
exactly. That's how my style was born. I mean, if you see my work in the late 80s, I mean, or just early 90s, and you will see it later, I mean, when we show some images of my living room, it's pretty much very actual. So I mean, like even my work, and specifically when we were making the last two monographs of the last 20 years covered of my career, and we did it not chronologically, but we did it actually, we did it chronologically, but not in themas. I mean, it's very interesting to see how work from 25 years old is still very actual and still very inspiring. And I mean, it's something that comes up naturally for me. I mean, I've always been like that. I mean, this kind of sobriety is something that always appealed on me. I mean, always also in the way how I live, also in the way how I enjoy life. Also, I mean, I don't like, even like in food, for example. I mean, nothing is so good as just the pureness of Italian kitchen. You know what I mean? Italian food, the pure essence where you taste the ingredients, where you see the ingredients, where you taste the authenticity of the ingredients. I think you should consider my work and the way how I perceive and look at architecture a little bit the same. I mean, it's mainly variations with the same ingredients, but always trying, I mean, to evolve and to come up with some sparkling new details, but not into your face. I mean, I will always do it with a lot of respect. And again, my aim is to create quality and not quantity. And I mean, this is something which makes that, you know, we're trying to be perfectionists. We are really diving into each of our projects, and we're very challenging and very demanding for ourselves, but we will always look at it with a lot of respect. And I think this is also very, very important, any attitude of any designer and architect.
And I'm happy, and I hope Mark can agree, that you are opening the new series Disrupting Patterns that is not new, but is I think to have a strong vision. It can be whatever, but you are the demonstration that quality, looking for perfection. I mean, you are Vincent Van Duysen with your own strong viewpoint and philosophy. But Vincent, how did you become Vincent Van Duysen?
Well, how did I become Vincent Van Duysen? I mean, we can go back actually to my period when I was living and working in Italy as a young architect, which was like 86, 87. And I remember when I came back to Belgium, and I found out this beautiful place where you have a picture here in front of you, which was kind of like a lofty space in Antwerp. And also with all the knowledge of my travels and the fact that literally I was already aiming for a simple, more desaturated, I call it, style. I created this living room, which mainly also reflects a little bit about, I mean, the essence and the way how we Belgians are living, and I mean how we see life is. I mean, this use of natural materials like natural flax, Belgian linens, natural looking carpets, beautiful naturally made divanos, like sofas, very limited furniture pieces, books, because, you know, I love books. This created that my work became very sensorial and very sensual. And actually, it was a very small little picture that Ilse Crawford, at that time, editor-in-chief of the British Elle Decoration, came across my interior, and she fell in love with the interior. She said, Vincent, what you're doing here is something totally new. I mean, we're ending a period of postmodernism, which was very hard to live with and within. I mean, you're bringing that touch of humanity in it. I mean, I'm an editor where everything is around quality of living. I mean, it's all dedicated to the people that are living in the house. She was the one that started photographing interiors with people in it, you know, so that people really could understand what living is about. What is this art of living? What is this all about? So people were really feeling very comfortable about it. And she gave me like a 10-page publication, which I thought, like, my God, it was my first ever publication, and the title was Sensual Home. So, and
also the title of the most famous book by
her, yes. And I was so flattered. I was so flattered because, you know, even without knowing myself, that I created like a new style, whatever you call it, but that, you know, as a reaction to postmodernism, whatever you call it, creating this kind of calmness all of a sudden in an interior that I still take with me and still project it. This made this interior very unique. As you know, I mean, even after Ilse discovered it like more than 20 years ago, last year, this room was voted as one of the 25 iconic rooms by New York Times Tea magazine. So this was for me, I mean, incredibly a big honor again. And still, when I see this room or the house where I'm living in it, I mean, it's the same. So it's still the same, let's say, sensation that you have. It's the same typology of colors. I have my piles of books still around. It's still this kind of calmness and emptiness, but yet very warm that I have here in my houses. And this is where I really, what I want in all of my.
I think that timeless, right? This success is the best satisfaction for an architect, that you don't go out of fashion.
I don't see anything, but I mean, in my point of vision, yes. I mean, I love this kind of timelessness in it, and it gives you a lot back at the end. And again, you can change subtly with objects you're living with your dogs that are living species that are giving extra life to your room. So, but again, it's more about getting rid of the excess than adding of the excess. And it already started 25 years ago.
But Vincent, so now you are from your home in Belgium. You are not going to the office, right? Because of lockdown everywhere. But how is your life at the studio usually? And today,
Well, I mean, since March, obviously, I mean, we've been locked down and I'm locked up in my room. As you see here are two images of the house where I'm living in
So
right
it's
now.
not the studio, it's the house
No,
again.
this is the house. No, this is the house of where I'm living in right now. It's again, I mean, you see it. I mean, it's being disconnected. I mean, it's a feeling of being disconnecting from the outside. I mean, and specifically in a period where we're living right now, where people have to live more with their inner selves and people are more focused on their inner selves. I consider my house again as a sanctuary that feeds me, that nourishes me, that boosts my creativity. And of course, I mean, I still go to the office, even though we're very limited people there because it's all Corona approved. I mean, the best place where I can create and where I can calm down my senses is this house where you see those two pictures from right now.
How many people do you have on your team?
We have like around 30 people. We are fluctuating between 25 and 30 people. We have a very international staff. So I mean, I have Italians, I have people from Portugal, I have people from France. I mean, like, so we have people from a little bit all over. But it fluctuates. It fluctuates. Obviously, most of the people, they're working from their homes right now. But of course, with all the digital tools that we have right now, I mean, we're even more focused right now than before. The communication is not that always accurate, but still, you're getting used to it. After all those months being in lockdown and being from one Zoom meeting to the other, it gives a feeling of satisfaction, and it doesn't affect negatively our creativity, I would say.
Vincent, I'm curious. Are you working new or upcoming project that maybe you can reveal today?
Well, I mean, I'm working actually, I mean, on a very nice and a very important hospitality project in Portugal, which is nearby where my house is situated. I think this is an extremely important project. We're working on very interesting new projects for Molteni and Dada. I mean, so be prepared because, you know, we're gonna unveil next year somewhere in September. Hopefully when the fair is going to be there, we're going to unveil a new direction, so which we're very excited about it. I'm finishing and I'm still working on a couple of projects in Los Angeles, which for me is extremely important. We just handed over one house in Los Angeles, which is my way how I perceive mid-century architecture, but then, you know, with my tastes and now we're even working in Bangkok on a residential project. So there are many projects going on. So a lot to look forward to. We're also working on a new smaller monograph, which is edited in Portugal. It's called AMAG. We have already one AMAG, so we're working on a second AMAG. And I might also work on specifically on one book which will be dedicated to Casa and my house in Portugal. I think this is one of the most exciting projects also I'm working on right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that you love books, and we can see also this from the picture.
Yes.
Vincent, I think that, I mean, I feel super fine and super happy about our conversation.
Me too.
And, yes, we were, I mean, it was, I would love to ask more questions, of course, but I think that it's enough, and maybe we can organize
con un aperitivo, con un caffè la prossima volta a Milano.
Milano, correct. We can invite you.
We can do that. That would be nice to continue our conversation. I would love to.
Yeah, because I have many questions. For example, the curtains as an architectural elements, but maybe let's keep this.
If I have to say it only in one word, I mean, curtains bring softness. I mean, sometimes in this kind of hardcore, hard sell of architecture, you know, where you think about structure and building, sometimes you need some softness. And not only in your house. I mean, softness belongs to each of our humans. So that's for me why I'm using curtains in my house.
We have the images with the curtains as a protagonist, and also I saw this element in your book next to me. So Vincent, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you again, Vincent. Grazie.
Grazie a voi.